In 2.4, we're going to look at formulas and solving formulas for a specified variable or evaluating formulas. Formulas is just another version of solving equations. You're just going to see more variables involved. So a formula is an equation relating several quantities, and when we replace the variables in an expression with numbers and calculate the result, we are evaluating the expression. So let's look at this problem. We have a formula, d equals 65t, gives the distance traveled in miles by a vehicle traveling 65 miles per hour for t hours. A car travels 65 miles per hour for 3 hours. How many miles did the car travel? So the question is, where do we put this 3? The 65 is already taken into account into the formula. So it's 3 hours. T represents the hours, so we're going to take that 3 and plug it in for t and evaluate. So what is the distance traveled when a car is traveling 65 miles per hour for 3 hours? And so we're going to multiply. 65 times 3 is 195, and this would be miles since we're talking about distance. Now, another thing that we can do with formulas is we can take a formula such as the one that they gave us, d equals 65t, and what if the problem had asked us to find a distance if they gave us the time? Like, what if they would have given us 195 miles and they said, well, how long did that take? Well, we can solve this equation for t instead. Right now it's solved for d, and we're going to use the same rules and laws that we used when we solved equations. So if we want to get t by itself and we see a multiplication, we can simply divide both sides by 65. And our 65's canceled there, and we're left with d over 25 equals t. So I took the formula that they gave me and I solved it for t instead of d. And we do that a lot with equations and formulas. We manipulate them to make them look the way we want them to look, depending on what we need to do or what we need to find. So now let's look at this one. The cost for 1 month of Camden's cell phone bill in dollars is given by the formula C equals 45 plus 0.1 M, where M is the number of text messages sent or received that month. How much was his cell phone bill for a month in which he sent or received 80 text messages? So where does this 80 go? Does it go in for the C or the M? Well, they specified that M is the number of text messages. So we're going to take that 80, plug it in for M, and evaluate. So C equals 45 plus 0.1 times 80. Order of operations tells us to do multiplication first. 0.1 times 80 is 8. And C is going to be 53. So $53 would be the cell phone bill. Now, here is a series of formulas, and we're not going to do all of them, we'll just pick a few, and we're going to solve them for a different letter. So, for instance, number 7 is solved for C. They want us to solve it for D. That's very similar to the one we worked a couple problems back, so we're not going to do that one. Let's go down to number 9. And I'm going to rewrite it so we have a little bit more space. Y equals 18 minus x. And they want us to solve it for x. Right now it's solved for y. So I need to get the x by itself, so I'm going to move that 18, and since it's a positive 18, I'm going to subtract or add a negative 18. So it's going to give me y minus 18 equals negative x. We don't want negative x, we want positive x. So we're going to divide by negative 1. Remember, there is an invisible 1 right there in the front. So that's going to give me a positive x on the right. And really, dividing by negative 1 or multiplying by negative 1 just changes your signs. So now that formula is solved for x. Let's look at number 10. We have 11a equals 12b, and they want us to solve for b. Well, if we're going to get b by itself, then we got to get rid of that multiplication of 12. So simply divide by 12. That gets you your b by yourself. So b is going to be 11a over 12. We use the same laws and rules when we solve formulas for a specified variable. There's just not as many steps because we don't have as much information, so we can only go so far, but we're still going to have variables in our solutions. Okay, these are getting a little bit more complicated, so let's look at 14. We're solving for x, and right now x is part of a very yucky looking fraction. So if we wanted to get rid of that fraction or that division of 2, let's multiply both sides by 2. And I'm going to put 2 over 1 since it's kind of a fraction. And we'll multiply this by 2 as well. Because what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So my 2's are going to cancel, and I'm going to be left with 2m equals x minus y. Now it's going to be a lot easier to solve for x, because now all I have to do is get rid of the y. And that's going to leave me 2m plus y equals x. Final answer. Okay, let's do 16. We'll bring it up here so we have a little bit more room to work with. We have t equals xy over z. No numbers at all, but that's okay. We need to solve for z. Right now we have this kind of funky looking fraction, so just like in the previous problem, let's get rid of the fraction. So we're going to multiply by z over 1, both sides. That's going to leave me zt equals, these z's cancel, xy. Now I no longer have my fraction, and since I'm evaluating for z, I need to get rid of the multiplication of t by dividing by t. And so z equals, because those t's cancel, xy all over t. And that's my final answer.